This is the brand new Renault 4, which continues Renault's revival of old classics in electric versions. In this video, I take a closer look at the car, both inside and out. And of course, I also take a closer look at the built-in software, just like I usually do, since as a tech nerd, I think it's a pretty important component in a modern electric car. Something I also usually test thoroughly is the car's driving assistance. So of course, I'll be doing that with the Renault as well. However, that video will come a bit later than usual, once I've had the chance to borrow the car for a little longer. Today, I only have it for a few hours. But since I know that many of you are curious about the Renault 4, I've decided to release the first video as quickly as I could. In video 2, I'll also share my overall assessment, so remember to subscribe so you don't miss it when it comes out later in the year. The Renault 4 comes in 3 trim levels: Evolution, Techno and Iconic. Evolution starts at 207,000 Danish kroner with a 40 kilowatt-hour battery and 120 horsepower motor, which gives it a WLTP range of 300 to 312 kilometers. Unlike the Renault 5, you can also get the Evolution model with the large 52 kilowatt-hour battery and a 150 horsepower motor, and then the range is increased to 400 to 409 kilometers. However, the price rises to 222,000 kroner. The Techno and Iconic models are only available with the large battery, the 150 horsepower motor, and a WLTP range of 400 to 409 kilometers. The price for the Techno model is 240,000, but then you also get the Google-based Android Automotive system, adaptive cruise control, a larger 10-inch driver's display, a better sound system with 6 speakers, wireless phone charging, and alloy wheels included in the price. Iconic is the top model, which is 10,000 Danish kroner more expensive than the Techno variant. For that, you get parking sensors on all sides, an automated parking assistant, illuminated color-changing Renault 4 logo, frameless rear mirror, and a black roof. You also get a different set of alloy wheels compared to the Techno model. I've added a Google link down in the description, so it's easy for you to find relevant local information about the Renault 4 and the various trim levels and prices available in your country. Just like in the Renault 5, Renault has also made several subtle references back to the old model in the 4, but they've updated them and made them a bit more modern. For example, the front grille here, which is actually wrapped in plastic, making it more aerodynamic, and then there's this glowing LED strip all the way around when you have the lights on, which really gives it a pretty striking front signature. I don't know how much you can see here in the daylight. I've tried turning the lights on, but I think it makes the car look modern and futuristic, while still maintaining a very clear reference back to the old model. Otherwise, there's not much more up here, because just like in the other Renaults, unfortunately, there's no frunk in the Renault 4 either. So let's head around and take a look from the back. The references continue here at the back, for example with the shape of these taillights, which are of course now modern LED lights, but still have this rectangular shape, just like they did on the original Renault 4 model from 1961. There's also this little overhang on the roof, and this model also has a really good large trunk, just like the original Renault 4. In fact, a full 420 litres. That's actually only 20 litres less than the next size up, the Renault Megane. But here I have a completely flat loading edge, which I don't have in the Megane. So it's super practical if you want to get things in and out. And actually, if you fold down the seats, the Renault 4 gets over 70 litres of extra storage space compared to its bigger brother, the Renault Megane. So it actually makes a lot of sense that they're priced quite close to each other, because this is really just a different shape, but you get just as much space inside the car. In fact, a little bit more when you fold the seats down. Back here, I have a little shelf on both sides. I also have an elastic strap with the French colors, which I can use to secure things in the trunk. Actually, that's pretty clever. And I also have a 12-volt outlet up here, so if I go on a trip with the Renault 4, I can have my cooler sitting in the back. Here, the charging cable is lying in the trunk, because this car is the top model, Iconic, which also has a Harman Kardon sound system, and that actually takes up this entire space under the floor, where you would normally have plenty of room to put the charging cable. It's actually quite a large compartment, but in this model it's completely filled up. As I mentioned, I can fold the seats down, and I can actually fold all of them all the way down, so I can fit items up to 2.20 meters in length. So let's just try that. Now I've folded down both the back seat and the front seat, so I actually have space all the way through the car, right up to the windshield. In total, it should be 2.20 meters in length, so I can really transport some long items in the Renault 4. Now, I myself am 1.72 meters tall, so I might as well be a bit silly and crawl in here to see if I can fit. Now I'll just put my feet up on the dashboard here, and well, now I'm lying here at my full length, and as you can see, there's still plenty of space, so I must say that the new Renault 4 really lives up to its predecessor's spaciousness. Pretty clever, actually, in such a compact car as this one. The charging port on the Renault 4 is, just like on the Renault 5, located here in the front fender on the driver's side, and that's not really my favorite spot. I do like when the charging ports are up in the front fender, because then it's easier when you have to pull up to, for example, a fast charger that's by a curb. That way, you don't have to back in, you can just pull in and plug the cable right in, which is nice. Then you can just take it easy when you have to back out again. But when it's on the driver's side, it means I can't use, for example, Tesla's version 3 superchargers, of which there are quite a lot. So if I want to drive south and plan to use them, then this placement can be a problem, because the cables simply aren't long enough, and then you have to take up 2 charging spots. You don't have that problem when the port is on the opposite side, as it is, for example, on the Renault Megane. But hey, apparently this is the new side where Renault has decided to put it. I don't know why. Sure, it's close to the driver, but I would have preferred if it was on the other front fender. Now I've sat down in the back seat of the Renault 4, and at first glance, it might look like there isn't much space. But that's because I've pushed the front seat all the way back. So this is actually the worst case scenario. So instead of you having to guess how tall I am and how much space that gives, someone actually suggested in the comments on a previous video, why don't you just push the front seat all the way back so you can see what the worst case is if a really tall person is sitting in front. And this is what it looks like. So I still have room for my knees, I can get my feet under the seat in front, and I'm actually sitting pretty comfortably upright here. I've got about a hand's width like this above my head. So if you're much taller than 1.72 meters, you might want to check if you can actually sit in the back. I don't think it's meant for really tall people, but for smaller people like me and for kids, there's definitely enough space back here. There are 2 USB-C ports down here in the middle, which is nice. But there's no ventilation, so if you tend to get car sick, this probably isn't the place you want to sit. But at least you can charge your devices. You couldn't do that in the Renault 5. There are also 3 seat belts back here. However, the middle seat is quite narrow, so probably not the most comfortable position. But still, 3 people can sit back here as long as they're not too big. In front of me here, I have some pockets. There's a little pocket here, probably for my mobile phone, I think. And then there's a slightly larger pocket here. That's actually pretty clever, so it can just sit there by itself and not get lost in the big pocket. Otherwise, there's not much more to say about the back seat back here. There's some fabric upholstery on the doors, but there's hard plastic up here on the top of the doors, so not super luxurious materials. Now I've moved to the front seat in the Renault 4, and in many ways it reminds me of the cabin in the Renault 5. I have the same screens in front of me here in the Techno and Iconic models. Here I have a 10-inch screen in front of the driver and also a 10-inch screen right here next to it with Android Automotive and Google-based navigation, and I'll get back to that in just a moment. I have these vertical stitches here, and I have the Renault 4 logo, just like I had the Renault 5 logo here in a color that matches the car. I don't know if it's blue on all cars, it was red on the Renault 5, but it also looks really cool up here. And overall, it's a pretty nice cabin, it works well. I do think this screen is a bit small. Now, I'm used to a screen that's at least twice as big in the Renault Megane, which, price-wise, is very close to this one. But it's a more compact car, and maybe that's the more modern new design, which we also saw in the Renault 5, but even though it's small, it still works really, really well. I have a wireless charger down here in front, and I also have 2 USB-C ports and a 12-volt socket. And then I have a bit of storage space here, cup holder storage here, and then I have an armrest and a relatively small compartment, a bit deep. No, actually not that deep. A relatively small storage compartment down here, but at least I have the option to put some things in it. I don't have any space under here, but I do have a glove compartment over here, which also isn't super big. It's pretty compact, but you actually sit quite comfortably. These seats are from the Iconic model, so it's that kind of leather faux, vegan, leather-like stitching here, but it looks pretty good. There are these bolsters that stick out here, so I'm held in place well, just like in racing seats. I've got fabric on the doors here, just like in the back seat, and then there's hard plastic up here on top, and actually also here on the dashboard, so it's not any more luxurious here in the front. There's a bit of hard plastic in some places, though not on the armrest here. It's pretty okay. On the steering wheel, I have real physical buttons. It may look like touch buttons with this piano black finish here, but they're actually real physical buttons you can press. Super nice, just like in the other Renault cars, and I have my multi-sense button down here, which I also have in the other Renault cars, and I use it to switch drive modes. My gear selector is also placed up here just like in the other Renault cars, and it looks exactly like the one in the Renault 5 with a little glass or clear plastic knob at the end. It actually looks pretty nice. And then I have my windshield wiper over here, my turn signal here, and my third stalk down here to control my sound system. So it's just as you know it from Renault. If you've tried other Renaults, it's exactly the same here in the Renault 4. Over on the door, I can lock the windows and I can open and close the windows both in the front and the back. It's not like there are only buttons for the front and then a touch button. I have controls for all 4 windows. That's really nice. And I also have controls for my side mirrors over here, as expected. I also have physical buttons down here under the display. I think it's super nice that I can easily adjust the cabin temperature with a physical button. I can turn the fan up and down, I can turn defrosting on and off, start recirculation and so on. I can also turn off the entire climate system down here. But it's really nice that I have access to physical buttons because it just makes everything much easier when you're driving. And of course, it's the same with the air vents here. I can also control them with regular physical levers, just like we're used to. It's worked for 100 years, and still works really well. As for my rear visibility, well, as you can see, there isn't much of it. It's a relatively small rear window, and there are also headrests that block some of the view. Unfortunately, I don't think you can get an electronic rear-view mirror in the Renault 4, like you can in the Renault Megane that I have, but I'll make sure to put it on the screen if it is possible. I've definitely been quite happy with it in our Megane, but it's a bit of a personal preference whether you like those electronic rear-view mirrors. I think it's nice that you get a much better view, especially since there's not much visibility out the back because it's so small. One thing I just have to mention is that the backup camera in this car is well below average. The resolution is so low that you can't even read what's on the signs behind you. I simply don't understand why they didn't put in a slightly better camera. It can't possibly cost that much. It's definitely a stupid place to cut costs. It's really, really bad. Well, as promised, we also need to take a look at the software here in the Renault 4. But before I do that, I just need to mention that this car also has paddles behind the steering wheel, just like in, for example, the Renault Megane, where I can control the car's regeneration. And if I press the right paddle over here, I reduce the regeneration all the way down, so there's almost no regeneration, and the car just coasts. And if I press the left paddle, well then I increase the regeneration all the way up to 1 pedal drive, because the car also has 1 pedal drive, so you can let go of the accelerator and coast all the way down to 0 kilometers per hour and drive using only the accelerator pedal. Just so that's clear as well. I just forgot to mention that earlier. But now, let's take a closer look at the software. This is Android Automotive. It's the Google-based system, which is also found in the Renault 5, Renault Megane, and Renault Scenic. So if you know those cars, there isn't really much new here. But if not, let's take a look at it anyway. By default, on my home screen here, I have Google Maps, a map showing where I am and where I'm driving. I also have these 2 shortcuts out here that I can pull in. There I can choose if I want something else. Right now, there's a clock, but if, for example, I'd rather have my eco score so I can see how efficiently I'm driving, then I can choose to have that displayed instead. Below my home screen with the navigation, I have my media, which typically means I have my radio, but I can also go up here under sources and choose other media. I can choose Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. The car has both of these wirelessly, so I can connect my phone wirelessly and use it if I want to, both for music, navigation, and anything else you might be used to. I also have the option to just connect via Bluetooth, and I even have the possibility to plug in a USB stick with some audio files and play them if I want to. And then Google has this news broadcast feature, where they have various news you can listen to. Under Media, I have the option to control my phone if it's connected via Bluetooth. And then here, this one with the little squares, those are my different apps. Right now, there aren't that many apps, but this is an Android-based system, so I have a Google Play Store. Unfortunately, I can't access it right now because I don't have an account in this car, so I can't log in here. I'm not planning to log in with my own Google account in this press car. But it is an Android-based system, so there are a lot of apps you can install. So if you want Spotify natively in your car, you can go ahead and install it. The last item down here is my car settings. And here I can, among other things, choose my different drive modes. There are 5 different ones I can choose from. There's Eco, Comfort, Sport, Snow, and All-Terrain. I'm not really sure what it does, but I guess it's probably something to do with anti-spin and so on, which is managed a bit differently. At least that's the case here, and I also have the option to go in and press configure, and then I can set some things more precisely, like how I want it, whether I want the steering assist to be light, high, or medium, and so on and so forth. Similarly, in here under Life on Board, I can control things in the cabin. And earlier I said that I didn't know whether that Renault logo over there, which was blue, was because it matched the car. But it actually matches the ambient lighting in the car. So if I go in here under cabin lighting, I can actually go in and choose a color, and it also changes the color of the Renault logo over here, so I can choose myself which color I want the Renault logo to be displayed in, so it can match the color of my car or whatever mood I'm in. It's really just a gimmick, but I actually think it's pretty cool that the logo over there also changes color. My other settings for the car I have over here. And under electric, well, that's self-explanatory. That's everything related to the car's electrical system. When I'm driving, I can see the energy flows here. Of course, I'm not driving right now, so that's why it's not showing much. I can also go in and set up a custom program, so I can add, for example, when the car should charge if it's always connected to my own charger at home. I can set the climate control to have the car warmed up by Monday at 8 a.m. or every weekday at 8 a.m. or whenever I need to leave home. Still under the battery menu, I can adjust my charging settings. I can choose how much I want to charge, whether I want to charge to 100%, or I can adjust it all the way down to 80% or even down to 55%. So if I really want to save my battery and not charge it very much, I actually have the option to do that. Of course, I also have the option to set a minimum level, that is, how low I want to let the battery go. And the minimum can be 15%, it can also be 20, 25, or all the way up to 45%. So if I really have range anxiety, I can set it so that I won't let the battery go below 45%. I don't know exactly what the car does if I set it to that, because I haven't driven it for that long yet, so I've not taken it down to 45%. But maybe when I make the next video about the driving assistance, I should try setting the minimum limit to 45% and then see what happens as I get close to it. I honestly haven't seen any cars that have such a high minimum limit, so it'll be a bit interesting to see what on earth it does then. But I also have the option to set it lower if I want to. This car also has hands-free parking assist because it's the Iconic model, and hands-free parking is included in the price. That's not something I'm testing in this video. If you'd like me to test that in the next video, just write it in the comments, and I'll see if I can include it in the video about the driving assistance. And under my driving, there's this eco-driving score, where I can see how I'm driving, how much energy I'm using, and whether I'm driving smoothly and braking safely and so on and so forth, just like in many modern cars. Under the car menu, I have all the settings related to the car itself, like the more physical settings. For example, access control, where I can choose whether the car should automatically lock the doors when I start driving, and whether the hands-free lock should unlock, meaning whether the car should automatically unlock the doors when I approach with the key. It's super convenient, so I'd recommend having that enabled. And I can choose whether it should be silent. I can also choose what happens when I get into the car. It has this sound and light sequence, where the screens show some fancy animation and plays a special Jean-Michel Jarre designed sound every time I unlock the car. If I find that to be annoying, well, then I can simply turn it off here. Here I can also choose whether the automatic mirrors should fold in and out, as well as the lighting functions in the cabin in general. Under cockpit, I can adjust the brightness of the screen, and it's also here that I can set the volume for the turn signal, because the turn signal sound is actually quite pleasant, but I think it's a bit loud. So you can set it to low so it doesn't bother you as much. I like that. If you want to make sure you can hear the turn signal, you can also set it to medium or high. I also have a favorite button on the steering wheel. There's a little star button down here, and I can assign it to any of the functions you see here. So if, for example, I want a shortcut to the steering wheel heater, so I don't have to press down here on the screen, but just want it right here on the steering wheel, I can set it to that. I can also set it to heat the front seats or clean the air and so on. These are the settings I can choose from. And finally, there were those widgets out on the home screen. Well, for each of these widgets, you can choose one of these settings. So if, for example, I always want my tire pressure displayed, well, then I can do that. But I do think they take up a bit too much space on the relatively small screen. All right, away with that. That was everything in here under the car. Well, there's just this setting which was also under apps, and these are the general settings for the car. So this is where I can go in and adjust the sound settings for the different media types, assistance, ringtone, navigation, notifications, and so on. And this is also where I have my network settings, Bluetooth, if I need to pair or delete Bluetooth devices. I can control location, whether it should be turned on or off. I can manage privacy information, GDPR, and so on. And of course, I can see my apps and how much space they use and what they have access to, manage notifications, set the clock. In other words, all the basic settings. This is also where I create my profiles and my accounts. And under System, I can go in and see language, units of measurement, storage space. I can also see which system I have. In this car, I have Android 12, and those are the versions displayed down here. And under System Information, I think I have a software version, which is a very, very long number. But if you're watching this video at a later time, you can maybe check if you have the same software version or if you've received a new one, because the cars have over-the-air updates. I will say, though, I don't know how often they come or what they contain. I think primarily they're bug fixes, because I have to say, in my Renault Megane, which I've only had for 18 months, well, it doesn't have Android 12 like this car. It only has Android 10 as its operating system, and there hasn't been a single update for it in all the months I've had it, so that's not encouraging. But let's get back to the navigation, because that's really one of this car's big advantages, at least if you select the Techno or Iconic versions, because they both come with a Google-based navigation system, and in my opinion, that is simply one of the best working systems out there. It's the same system that I have in my Renault Megane, which I often refer to when I test other cars, because it's honestly one of the best systems I've tried when it comes to navigation and knowing the places you want to go to. With this system, I can navigate to well-known places, that is, points of interest, without knowing the exact address. Of course, I can press Search up here to bring up the keyboard and type in what I'm looking for, but because the car also has a voice assistant, namely Google Assistant, which is actually really, really good, I don't even need to type. I can just tell the car, so I don't even bother trying to type it now. I think we should just use the voice assistant right away, because I know that works super well. I actually don't even need to say navigate to or show the way to. If I just say a point of interest or an address, the car knows that I probably want to navigate there. So let's try it. For example, I can click here and say, the Opera House.
All right, let's drive to the Opera House.
Boom! Then it has created a route to the Opera House, and it also tells me how long it takes, and not least what state of charge I can expect to have when I arrive. It has already calculated how much energy I will use, so now I know how much charge I have left when I arrive. And that's displayed throughout the entire route, so I can see if it changes along the way. That's how it should be. It's absolutely perfect. I'll just stop that one, and then we can try navigating to Paris. That's what I usually do as well, so we can see how the route planning works. And again, I can just use the voice assistant. I love that I can just talk to the car and don't have to sit and type on a screen. The Eiffel Tower in Paris.
Okay, to the Eiffel Tower.
Boom, then it creates a route. It really couldn't be much easier, and it's actually pretty fast at creating the route too. It says start. Yes, thank you, it has also included charging stops. It actually showed the route right away without charging stops, so I could have just started, and then the charging stops were added afterwards, and it's now included them for me all the way down here. And I can also go in and see these charging breaks that are there. I go into route details, and then I can see which chargers it has chosen for me in here. And what's also really, really cool in the Google system here is that I can actually go in and prioritize which chargers it should use. Right now, it has chosen a supercharger, it has picked some Ionity and some Shell Recharge, and some Fastnet and some Novo Eco, and Total Energy and Electra. That's what it's selected. Many different providers. But if, for example, I have an Ionity subscription, or a Tesla subscription, or both, and I primarily want to use those, then I also have the option to go in and ask it to create a route that only uses them. Let's just try to do that, if I just end this route here. If I go into this little lightning bolt here, I actually have the option to go into these filters. And there's a filter up here called Payment. And there I have my different charging providers. And as you can see, there are actually quite a lot in here. Many Danish ones have also been added in the past year, such as Clever and Eon Drive and so on. So that's really, really great. So if I just scroll down here, there are really a lot. I usually go with Ionity, and then I usually go with Tesla, which is probably all the way down here at the bottom. Let's just take a look. There it is, supercharger non-Tesla, meaning superchargers that also work for cars that aren't Teslas. Almost all of them do now. Well, then I can select that one. Then it's added, and I can also go in and say, well, I only want fast chargers, for example. I just need to press here and say that I only want 150 kilowatts or faster. That's a pretty good middle ground because you can also choose 350 kilowatts or faster, but very few cars can actually charge that quickly. This one definitely can't, so 150 is fine. You only need to set this setting once, and then the car remembers it and uses it the next time you navigate. So if we just make the route again, the Eiffel Tower in Paris?
Okay, to the Eiffel Tower.
It's created the route. Now it's just thinking for a moment, and then the chargers will show up, and it should have only selected Tesla and Ionity. Let's take a look. It's added a bunch of chargers here. I'll select route details. Tesla, 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 Ionity, Tesla, 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 and the Eiffel Tower. So yes, it works. I can choose for myself which payment providers, that is, which charging providers I want to use again. It's just super cool when you're going on a long trip because typically you'll stick to certain ones and you can easily do that in this car. And once you've started your route, you also have the option to go in and change them along the way. So if I press down here on this little point of interest icon, I can see my charges. I can not only see when I'll arrive approximately, I can also see what charge I'll have when I arrive and how long I need to charge. So if, for example, this one where I'll arrive with 35%, I think that's a bit much. I'd actually like to see if I can find another one nearby. Then I can press on it and I can see where it is, and I can also see some information like that there's a McDonald's nearby, and I can see what other facilities are there. So it's just a McDonald's, but at least I can get something to eat there if I want. But I can also press replace, and then I can see what else is nearby. Well, actually, there's an Ionity in Vordingborg. It takes a little longer. Then there's a supercharger up in Slagels. That's not really good either, but if there was another one nearby, there aren't that many right here in southern Denmark, but then I would be able to go in and choose another charger. Let's just try it once, just for fun. If I go in and select one further down the route, somewhere down in Germany, let's see here. This one. That's probably not in Germany, but never mind. Then I can say here which chargers are there, and then it finds chargers around. And when I scroll through here in the route, well, it picks chargers that are farther and farther away from my route. So it starts with the chargers that are closest, and then it selects chargers that are farther and farther away along the route. And if I want a new charger, well, then I can just say that I want to choose it, and then it thinks for a moment, and then I tap select stop, and then it has replaced the charger. So it's super easy for me to adjust what the car chooses, and the car also adapts along the way, by the way. So if I'm driving and maybe use less power than expected, so I can go a bit further before I need to charge, well then it can go in and swap out a charger, or maybe even skip a charging stop entirely. And similarly, if I use more power, then it will add an extra charger. It just works. And yeah, I haven't experienced any system that's much better than this one, I have to say. Well, Tesla, if you only use Tesla superchargers, then it's even easier because it knows itself how many chargers are available, how many cars are on the way, and all sorts of things. But that does require that you only use the superchargers. Here, you can actually choose whichever charging provider you want, and you can do almost the same things. It definitely works really well, and it makes it super easy to go on a long trip in an electric car, because then you really don't have to worry about much. I've made several videos about how we drive from Denmark to Italy without planning anything at all. I'll upload the latest ones to my channel in the coming months if you're interested. You just saw that the voice assistant could navigate me to a point of interest without me knowing the address, but of course, I can also just tell it an address. As I mentioned, I can just press the button on the steering wheel here. I can also just say, okay, Google, navigate to Bredgade 10 in Copenhagen.
Navigate to Bredgade 10.
Boom, that works too. And now I said navigate, but I actually didn't even need to. Okay, Google, Bredgade 10 in Copenhagen.
All right, let's drive to Bredgade 10 in Copenhagen.
Isn't that just fantastic? Yes, that's how a voice assistant should work. By the way, it can also both turn on seat heating and set a temperature in the cabin, etc., just like many of the other assistants can. Personally, I never use that because I can just set the temperature with the physical knob down here, and I can just press here to turn on the seat heating. So I think it's a bit silly to have to ask Google to do it or ask the assistant to do it, but when it comes to navigation, it just works insanely well. I think that's about everything I could think of to tell you about the Renault 4 in this video. As I said, there will be a video later this year where I'll take it out and test the driving assistance. I don't know yet when I'll have the chance to borrow the car for a week. But remember to subscribe to the channel so you'll automatically get notified, and then you can watch that video as soon as it comes out. In the meantime, here are some other videos from my channel that Google thinks are just right for you. See you soon.